I'm so glad to be here in so many ways and everything. It's always, it's interesting because it's always the same, but it's always new. Right? So I love this place. So anyway, that's my kudos to Main Media. I'm going to, as I said, as maybe it was advertised or not, but I'm going to read a lot about ekphrastic poems, which is what my course series today, which I've done a few times, right? Writing, ekphrastic goes back to the Greeks. It goes back to the idea of ekphrastic means description. But if you really think about it, we're thinking about, Achilles' shield, when Homer in the Iliad wrote about the shield, right? Or if you think about the classic, which you may remember from high school, Ode to the Grecian Urn. But there was a practical value to that because you couldn't just email somebody, oh, look what I saw in the museum, right? And so the idea was, how do we describe art through language, right? And all the ekphrastic poem has evolved in many ways. It now includes writing about film, writing about TV shows, writing about plays, writing about photographs, as we are doing this week in our workshop. So it's just something that's really, it's a way, it's a mode that's really just continues to evolve, and it's interesting because how do we describe our lives through another art form, right? And how do we react to them? What does that mean? This is behind me now. So, I'm going to start with a few poems from a project which is one of our own for Main Media, Jacob Hessler, who's taught here. Who was he an MFA graduate from here? No. But certainly been very involved with Main Media. He's what I know is a contemporary landscape photographer. And we did this project together, which was called Boundaries. And it was 12 photographs and 12 poems on the subject, on the theme of boundaries. Not just geographical boundaries, but boundaries about, and certainly that was part of it, but it was boundaries of gender, of sexuality, psychological boundaries, all kinds of boundaries in how we sort of think about the world in that way. And it's a beautiful book. It's by Two Palms Press, which are also great friends of Main Media, right up the hill over here, who do these wonderful, they're not trade books, they're like just art books. And Jacob actually designed all this line that goes through the whole book. It's continuous, the idea of boundary and how it creates this essence throughout the book. So I'm going to share a few poems from that because it was a project that just sort of happened serendipitously, and then it became another book. There were all these poems, and I'll share that later. These poems became part of a larger project for me. This first poem, which I will share with you, this is one of the photographs that Jacob took. So part of, and I shared this with you, I know there's probably a lot of photographers in the room, or at least visual arts people, right? This is the Rio Grande, and so I'm used to writing it with the immigrant story from a Cuban perspective and whatnot. And but this is part of the divide that creates the border between Mexico and the United States. And so this is one of the photos that I reacted to or wrote a poem for. And I thought, how do I deal with that, right? Because my immigrant experience is very different, but it's yet an immigrant experience, right? So I thought, how am I going to solve this? I'm not Mexican, I'm not Cuban, right? So I thought, let's have the river speak. So, and what I want to say about ekphrastic also, which I forgot to mention, sometimes when we write about photographs, they can be really close, or any art form, they can be really close to the object, or they can be, you would never know from reading this poem that it was based on a photograph, but when you see them together, it has a greater power. And a few poems that I've shared where it's really focused on the photograph. So this is This is a poem in the voice of the river. Complaint of El Rio Grande. I was meant for all things to meet, to make the clouds pause in the mirror of my waters, to be home to fallen rain that finds its way to me, to turn eons of love-less rock into love-sick pebbles and carry them as humble gifts back to the sea that brings life back to me. I felt the sun flare, praised each star, flocked about the moon, long before you did. I breathed air you'll never breathe. Listened to songbirds before you could speak their names, before you dug your oars into me, before you created the gods that created you. Then countries, your invention. Maps jigsawing the world into colored shapes, caves and bold lines to say you're here, not there. You're this, not that. To say yellow isn't red, red isn't black, black is not white. To say mine, not ours. To say war and believe life's worth is relative. You named me. Big river drew me, thick, blue to divide. You split me in two. Half of me us, the rest the other. But I wasn't meant to drown children. Hear mother's cries. Never meant to be your geography, a line, a border, a murderer. I was meant for all things to meet. The mirrored clouds and sun's tingle, songbirds and the quiet moon, the wind and its dust, the rush of mountain rain, and us. Blood that runs in you is water flowing in me. Both life, both the truth. We know that we know is to be one in one another. So I've shared this a little bit with my class, but I'm going to keep them a little bit more background. Again, this is from the book Boundaries. This was actually the first photograph that Jacob sent me. I'm like, what? So it's the last recorded lynching of the United States, which the date will surprise you, as it surprised me, and that's part of the poem. And I couldn't figure out how to solve this, right? Again, because I don't have that direct experience. But that's the beauty of art. You can find a way into things, right? So this one is much closer to the photograph. It's just really started thinking about the photograph and the negative space, but also how you can pass by the street in Mobile, Alabama, and just like not even realize what had happened here, right? And sort of creating or thinking about that as the way that America has dealt with racism, right? Like we can just ignore it. We can just like keep on sweeping it under the rug and sweeping it under the rug. Or the idea that, you know, the Civil War, the North won the Civil War, everything's fine, you know? And so just thinking about those smudges that I had to think about as well, that were inherited for me, for my family. And it's not in the poem, but it was part of the process. And so you'll see some of the images here show up in the poem. But yeah, this is again much closer to the photograph as an Nebraska can be, right? Easy lynching on Herndon Avenue. What I'd rather not see isn't here. no rope, no black body under white moon swaying limp from a tree, no belly drops of dew on the 21st of March, 1981. That's in some other photos like I've watched, seen and gaps at wanting and not wanting to turn away from the snap the snap necks of the hanged, and the mob's smug smirks, asking myself, how could they? Why? Questions not here, not in this photo. A crisp and tranquil snapshot. Murder washed out by time. History left uncaptured. What's left here is easier on our eyes. Only pale morning light, seeping blue into the sky. A backdrop to the necks of the tree boughs, bowing like swans. Innocent of any crime on Herndon Avenue, pictured like any other street. Clean sidewalks, no blood. Utility poles strung with wires, no rope. A few pavement cracks, no broken boned body. Easier to imagine only this. Groomed children waiting for the school bus grinding to a halt that March morning, the 21st, 1981. Their backpacks zipped their backpacks lived with undoubtable history and equations, cartoon lunchboxes filled with fresh ham sandwiches and sweet grapes, sport coat fathers dashing to work, worried about the paycheck and the greenness of their lawns. All-day mothers tending silk pillows, never fluffed enough, scrubbing sinks never white enough, wiping windows never spotless enough. Easier not to ask if anyone saw him, if anyone knew the boy whose mama had named Michael Donald. Easier to think no one was friendly with Mr. Hayes and Mr. Tiger knows who on the night of March 21st, 1981, drove around looking for something black to kill. They spotted him, age 19, walking home, the body, strangled him first, then slit his throat, the blood, chose a tree to hang him, the rope, Herndon Avenue, 1981. Why? Which tree was it that shook with his last breath? Easier not to look for it, not to find it, not make ourselves imagine Michael still on Herndon Avenue, his death still alive since March 21st, 1981. Easier not to look at his shut eyes, wonder what his favorite color or superhero was, if he liked to skateboard or draw, if he heard his mom's cries. My boy, Jesus, my boy. Easier to believe that the last words on the lips of his murderers must have been, forgive us. To trust this kind of thing doesn't happen anymore. Stay blind, no rope, no blood, no body. To the life of a boy named Michael. Invisible in this photo. That is, until we dare to look hard and deep and long enough. It was interesting. He took another photo. I wrote this poem and he was like, no, I want to take another photo. And then back with this photo. But this is off the coast here, I think, in Kingdom, where it's so fucking cold in Maine. Like, that's an island, and you see the clouds like forming. It's the temperature difference. It's like, it was like, he explained to me after, it was like, that is really wild. So I took this as thinking about the metaphor, again, boundaries being the theme of how clouds are these boundless things, and like how maybe clouds are a way of thinking about our coexistence, right? But also clouds are messy, right? It's not like, oh, clouds are so pretty, you know, like there's storms, they fight, like there's things going on, but at the end of the day, they all belong in this one space. So I hope this comes through in this poem. It's called Cloud Anthem. Until we are clouds that tear like bread, that mend like bones. Until we weave each other like silk sheets shrouding mountains, or bare gales that cheer us. Until we soften our hard edges, free to become any shape imaginable. A rose, or an angel crafted by the breeze, like paper mache, or a lion, or a dragon, like marble chiseled by gusts. Until we scatter ourselves, petals of gray puffs, but then band together like string pearls. Until we learn to listen to each other as thunderous as opera or soft as showered lullabies. Until we truly treasure the sunset, lavish it in mauve, rust, and rose. Until we have the courage to vanish like sails into the horizon, or be at peace, anchored still. Until we move without any measure, as vast as continents or as petite as islands, floating in an abyss of virtual blue we all belong to. Until we dance tango with the moon and comfort the jealous stars falling. Until we care enough for the earth to bless it as morning fog. Until we realize we're as muddy as puddles, pristine as lakes, not yet clouds, until we remember we're born from rivers and dewdrops. Until we are at ease to dissolve as wispy showers, not always needing to clash like godly yells of thunder, until we believe lightning roots are not our right to the ground. Till we may collude into storms that ravage. We can also sprinkle ourselves like memories. Until we tame the riot of our tornadoes, settle down into the soft drizzle, into the danger, and though we may curse with hail, we can absolve with snowflakes. We can die valiant as rainbows, and hold light in our lucid bodies like blood. We can decide to move boundlessly, without creed or desire, until we are clouds, meshed within clouds, sharing a kingdom with no king, a city with no walls, a country without a name, a nation without any borders or claim, until we abide as one, together in one single sky. So I wanted to segue into a few more personal, the idea of, you know, ekphrastic is also, that was maybe a little more traditional form of like writing about photographs of this nature and that collaborative project, but here's my dad. There's actually several characters in here. That's my older brother, myself, my father, and then there's the plastic covered sofa, which is, for any immigrant, is like, it's just a thing, right? I'm amazed we were even sitting in it, you know? So, and this is a little bit of a twist on what is an ekphrastic poem about a photograph, which is the photograph that I never had, right? This is a photograph I do have, but then there are images that you feel like are photographic in your mind. and this is one of my father. Papa at the kitchen table. And it's got an epigraph by E. Cummings that says, my father moved through dooms of love, through sayings of and, through halves of give. This isn't a photograph of my father. There's nothing to prove I remember him like this, alone at the kitchen table beside a crystal bowl daubed with plastic red grapes. The curtains thin as vellum hung against the morning light, holding back the sun, not yet risen, above our terracotta rooftop. And yet, I'll be driving down the interstate or mincing onions or reading the newspaper when suddenly there he will be, the same blue-striped boxers, his hairy legs crossed, waiting for his espresso to brew, the glow of the range, the glow of his cigarette, tapping the ashes into the cup of his hand. I can't remember any photo with his elbows on the table, palms clasped around his face like sepals of a flower, leaning into the light of the window, seeing what I imagined he saw. Grackles squawking at nothing, the mangoes hanging like brick red hearts, the sundial shadows of the light poles across the driveway. Sometimes when I'm shaving, he appears in the mirror watching the thin white film, the moon in the morning sky vanishing, with the life I still wished for him. Not the life he had. Fleeing Cuba to Madrid, $10 one suitcase, winter work at a bomb factory in New York, then a butcher shop in Miami. There's no snapshot of him head bowed to the floor, counting the terrazzo specks, tugging at his eyebrows, thinking what I think he thought. How'd he pay for my tuition? A trip to Disney World he couldn't promise? If he'd ever learn English? See Cuba again? The gun I knew he kept under his bed? Even though there's no black and white to prove it, today, as I walk the beach, the sky, the sea, and my life are one with his. The clouds stop and tell me it's all true. The kitchen table, the aroma of his espresso, black, the beams of light piercing him, his eyes quiet and heavy, moonstones that always wished me a good morning. Okay, this is a weird one, and I'm going to hurry up a little bit, but this is just, I wanted to share this funny story, which involved my husband, Mark. So, my cousin Roxana was, my whole family, my whole mother's side of the family was in Cuba. I never met them until I was like 20-something, late 20s. And she was a firecracker. Like, when I went to Cuba, she was like, just a gun-ho. She's one of the first cousins that came over of that generation, my first cousin. And as a gift for her birthday, I took her to New York City. And I'm thinking, like, I'm doing her a favor, like, oh no, honey. Like, she was doing us a favor. Before I know it, she's with my mother, like, buying, like, fake, like, Chanel bags inside a Chinese van, like, I don't know. She's just a fireball. And then Mark, who's, like, I often think he's very cheesy, and he is, but he's like, we should go to the Statue of Liberty. I'm like, I'm not going to the Statue of Liberty. This is too cliche. And of course, we go there, and I'm like, what? I start bawling because there's this moment like, of course, this is absolutely right. And Roxana, she just bought a fake Chanel purse. And like, I didn't see a picture, she was raising a Diet Coke like this. So this is a tribute to her and also like where she comes from. And again, it's also based on like how photographs can like suddenly create this poem, right? So taking my cousin's photo at the Statue of Liberty, photo sign. May she never miss the sun or the rain in the valley trickling from royal palms, or the plush red earth, or the flutter of sugarcane fields and haciendas, or the endless hem of turquoise sea around the island. May she never remember the sea or her life again in Cuba, selling glossy postcards of the revolution and El Che to sweaty Germans. May she never forget the broken toilet and peeling stucco of her room in a government-partitioned mansion dissolving like a sandcastle back into the Bay of Cienfuegos. May she never have to count the dollars we'd send for her wedding dress or save egg rations for a cake. May she be as American as I wanted to be once, in love, with its rosy-cheeked men in breeches and white wigs, with the calligraphy of our liberty and justice for all, our we the people. May she memorize all 50 states, our rivers, our mountains. May she sing God Bless America like she means it, like she's never lived anywhere else but here. May she admire our wars and our men on the moon. May she believe our infomercials, buy designer perfumes and underwear, drink Starbucks, drive a Humvee, and have a dream. May she never doubt America. May this be her country more than it's ever been mine. When she lifts her Diet Coke like a torch into the June sky, clutches her faux Chanel purse to her chest. May she look into New York Harbor for the rest of her life and hold still when I say, smile. So I was commissioned by Freedom to Marry, which is an organization that was really pivotal in shifting the consciousness or the thinking about marriage equality. And so they commissioned me to write a poem for their 10th anniversary, and this is just at the cusp of when the Supreme Court hearing happened. And but it was really interesting because it's like the first time that I wrote a poem, knowing that it was going to be a film, a short film, and then thinking cinematographically, but also not dictating what that was going to happen. I wrote the poem, and then they used the poem verbatim. But in my head, I was also imagining, like, you know, Ryan Gosling and Brad Pitt. You know, it was like, in my head, there's all these things. It's kind of like I think it's like kind of a reverse infrastic where, like, you're writing about something that's going to be another art form, but you're writing it in a vacuum, and they did a tremendous job. He eventually, Peter Spears won the Academy Award for, was it Newman? Right? I think so. Yeah. So this is, again, almost 10 years ago. So I just wanted to share with you rather than read it. You gotta make it big. As an engineer and not an Apple person. There you go. Start right here.
I knew it then, in that room where we found for the first time our eyes and everything. Even the din and smoke of the city around us disappeared, leaving us alone as if we stood the last two in the world left capable of love, as if two mirrors face to face with no end to the light our eyes could bend into infinity. I knew since I knew you, but we couldn't.
I caught the sunlight pining through the shears, traveling millions of dark miles simply to graze your skin, as I did that first dawn I studied you sleeping beside me. Yes, I counted your eyelashes, read your dreams like butterflies flitting underneath your eyelids, ready to flutter into the room. Yes, I praised you like a majestic creature my God forgot to create. till that morning of you suddenly tamed in my arms. First for me to see, name you mine. Yes to the rise and fall of your body, breathing your every exhale a breath I took in as my own, wanting to keep even the air between us as one. Yes to all of you. Yes, I knew, but still we couldn't.
I taught you how to dance salsa by looking into my Caribbean eyes. You learned to speak in my tongue while teaching me how to catch a snowflake in my palms and love the gray clouds of your gray hometown. Our years began collecting in glossy photos, timelining our lives across shelves and walls, glancing back at us. Us embracing in some sunset, more captivated by each other than the sky-brushed plum and rose. Us claiming some mountain that didn't matter as much as our climbing it together. Us leaning against columns of ruins as ancient as our love was new, or leaning into our dreams as a table, flickering candlelight in our full mooned eyes. I knew me as much as us, and yet we couldn't.
Though I forgave your blue eyes turning green each time you lied, but kept believing you. Though we learned to say good morning after long nights of silence in the same bed. Though every door slam taught me to hold on by letting us go. And saying you're right became as true as saying I'm right. Till there was nothing a long walk couldn't resolve. Holding hands in hope under the streetlights, lustering like a string of pearls guiding us home.
Or a stroll along the beach with our dog, the sea washed out by our smiles. Our laughter roaring, louder than the waves, though we understood our love was the same as our parents'. Though we dared to tell them so, and they understood. Though we knew we couldn't. No one could. When the fiery kick lines and fires were set for us by our founding mother-fathers at Stonewall, we first spoke of defiance. When we paraded glitter leather and rainbows made human, our word became pride down every street, saying just let us be. But that wasn't enough. Parades became Rowley's bold words on signs and mouths until a man claimed freedom as another word for marriage, and he said, let us in. We said, love is love.
Proclaimed it into all eyes that would listen at every door that would open, until no's and maybes turned into yeses, town by town, city by city, state by state, understanding us and the woman who dared say enough.
Until the gavel struck into law, what we always knew. Love is the right to say, I do.
I do.
I do.
I do. I do.
I do.
I do.
I do. I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
And I do want us to see every tulip we've planted come up spring after spring.
100 more years of dinners cooked over a shared glass of wine and 1,000 more movies in bed.
I do until our eyes become voices, speaking without speaking. Until like a cloud meshed into a cloud, there is no more you.
Me, our name's useless. I do want you to be the last face that I see.
Your breath, my last breath. I do, and will for those who still can't vow it yet, but know love's exact reason, as much as they know
how a sail keeps the wind without breaking, or how roots dig away into the earth,
Or how the stars open their eyes to the night.
Or how a vine becomes one with the wall it loves. Or how, when I hold you, you are rain in my hands.
So I